I titled this The Value of Broadband. Because the last time we kind of divided things up and it was like, this is an operator panel and this one's a this panel, right? But I would like to have a conversation with a set of people that can have a very diverse view of things when it comes to all these things we're trying to do to get more value out of the broadband connections that are out there, the connected homes that are out there, and also give more value back to the subscriber about that. And to talk about that, I have Craig Thomas, Volker Offensberg, Stephen Kirsopp, and Arne Schulz. So if you could please just kind of introduce yourselves. I do want to start with Craig, though, because Craig and I talked about this. The entire concept of services-led broadband was a strategic thing that the Broadband Forum has sort of named and has been targeting for some time. So part of his introduction, I want him to talk about that and where that started and, you know, where it's going.
Yes, so Craig Thomas. I work for a small company, a small organization called the Broadband Forum. You might have heard of them. And it's my honor to represent everyone here. So strategic meeting, I think 3 years ago, we sat down and asked, what are we known for and what do we want to be known for? And pretty much everything was connectivity, connectivity, connectivity. We sat as a group, all the work area directors, all of the leadership, all of the board, and said, well, what are service providers wanting? When you look at a model where the connectivity is becoming more of a utility service, when you looked at the traditional ARPU being triple or quad play, and that being, shall we say, degraded as an ARPU model, where fixed voice is pretty much dead. IPTV is being squeezed by over-the-top providers. We all know that.
Did you see that data that just came out where streaming services overcame broadcast for the first time?
Yeah. And then we have something called the Executive Advisory Board, which is some of our members' executives sat down and we asked them the question, is services more important now than the connection to you from an ARPU model? And the 100% answer is yes, we need to invest in services.
It's a great segue, Craig, to this slide.
Yeah. Oh.
I should have warned you. I'm sorry. This is from that same report that is still in progress and will be released in October.
And this is where I have to be mean and say this is embargo. All of these OMDA joint surveys is not released yet and won't be until October. And if I catch any of you trying to use them publicly, I'm coming after you.
Anyway.
Yeah, so
so
I can't see it. So
it was just
the value-added services one.
Yeah.
When we do these OMDA surveys every 2 years, what we are seeing is a slow shift in what I used to call connectivity plus value-added services, which are value-added services that are directly related to providing a connection. And when we release all of these data, what you're actually going to see now is some really exciting push for what I think are real, true value-added services beyond the connection. So the fastest growing services that people are looking at is like teleworking packages, gaming packages, not just Wi-Fi management or securing the management, true value added on top. And with the squeeze and utility of just providing broadband, even if you add those services at €5 or $5, that's actually a 10% ARPU increase for many service providers. It's significant. And then the conversations with USP and how we work with open source organizations becomes more and more relevant to the service providers themselves.
Yes. So yes, I wanted to have Craig go first to sort of set the stage because that conversation happened, whatever, 3 years ago. Arne, why don't you go next?
Sorry, we're just fixing the setup here. Arne Schulz. I'm working as a senior management in Vodafone Group Technology, and I'm responsible for our home and security products. What that means is, on the one hand, we are including platforms. Marcel already showed you the work that we are doing there behind the scenes. On the other hand, we also include in that team the user interfaces, the app, the portal. I think, as Günther said, we already have something like that. And we include the integration with the different Vodafone markets. So when we looked at our journey of value-added services, I think we started a while ago putting some basic services already to our customers, Wi-Fi mesh, identifying devices in the home to provide a bit more accuracy when you look at your dashboard. But we had a lot of complexity with a diverse CPE portfolio and also technology limitations, obviously. We tried to build an app based on traditional device management systems. I need to slightly disagree with Günther. It didn't work out perfectly. So we scratched that. And 2.5 years ago, we basically launched the first device in the UK, which was part of this platform strategy already. Meanwhile, it evolved. We now have a set of services that we can offer, and we can tailor-made them depending on the local market. So not all Vodafone markets always agree on the importance of each service, the strategy to take them live. So what we had to come up with in this platform is as well to look at which service makes sense in which region and how can we hide or upsell or distribute services across the countries. Thank you.
Volker Effelsberg, I'm from Deutsche Telekom. I'm a product owner in Telekom Deutschland technology for remote management. And so my focus is pretty much on remote management. I presented last year in Mainz our USB deployment, which I consider to be the largest known USB deployment in the world. We raised our connected agents now to 2 million agents, all AVM Fritz boxes, where we basically serve one use case, one value-added service, which is helping the customer service to help the customer in this home network area. Like Günther mentioned in his presentation, this is also very clear to us that customers have really a lot of problems in the home network area, and they claim the provider for it, and they call him, and therefore we needed to help the agents to help the customer here. Yes, and in the meanwhile, we also put some further USB features to our deployment, which is a real-time feature that the customer care agent can retrieve real-time data out of the home network. And yeah, we are looking into further information we can retrieve out of the data model, the tier 181 data model. And we will bring some further information visible to the customer service regarding the access, the access information or the access status of the devices. Good. Hand over to Stephen.
Hello, my name's Stephen Kirsopp. I work as a development engineer in Telefonica, Germany. And that's a very generic job title. So I started working here over 20 years ago with O2 as a purely mobile operator. It then decided to move into DSL, into the broadband area. And fairly quickly after that, I started that journey as well myself. So I've been a service designer with Bitstream DSL services together with then Telefonica Deutschland. I've done some work on CPEs, testing of the first developments there. And for most of the time, more recently, I am responsible for the engineering and development of our ACS system, which is currently provided by Motive. We currently don't have a USP and don't have a plan to deploy it. So I'm kind of the joker in the pack.
And Stephen is strategically positioned as the foil to this. Okay, so I want to touch on a few of these things first, but with much sincerity, I do want this to be completely open. I like making sure this is a fluid conversation. I'm not just here to read a bunch of pre-prepared questions for these guys and have us go through them, and I'll go to lunch. I want to hear your questions for them as much as possible. This is good because I want to talk about some of the reasons why you have done this or haven't done this when it comes to value-added services, and that is trying to figure out what the customer wants and then acting on it, or adjusting things, just for your own services to make sure that, they are getting what they want, and they are being sticky and all that. How do we identify which value-added services, if any, will actually resonate with the customers? Is it data-driven, surveys, partners that you've had that do sell these applications that are like, oh yeah, everybody wants this. And what sort of things have resonated the most? And I also want to hear about the things that they already do value, the things that already do make them sticky too. Anyone can go first on that. I'm not going to call anybody out.
Good. Then I'll try first. So obviously the customer seems to be an important element. I think even here we have now the connected user. So yes, customer is important.
Those guys.
What we usually do is, on the one hand, obviously we start with customer and market research. In Vodafone, we need to do that also a bit on the different geographics. And sometimes you get interesting findings that you didn't expect, like you think about launching a home security service. And in Germany, people complain that they don't want cameras in their house and their privacy seems to be more important than other countries. So I think this customer research is a very important starting point to find glitches or problems you need to work around. In that, we also try to include a bit of user experience research already, because the best technology is worthless if we cannot present it to a user in a meaningful way. And when we talk about home services, at the end, it's everyone. It's my grandma that needs to be able to use them, and we need to make that work. Yes, we have partners. We have the increased ability now to also work with smaller startup companies, where this whole containerization strategy helped us a lot to take new ideas on board, not just from our incumbent vendors.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we start always with the customer, and we apply, for example, some design thinking processes already in the development phase or product definition phase and market researches. And after all, we are pretty much customer feedback based. We pretty much use the NPS, the Net Promoter Score, as a KPI, right? Okay, this comes afterwards, and to admit, you never know what service will really work. So there's no, I think there's only, there's a combination somehow out of what is possible technically, and what wants the customer, and what is he or she willing to pay for. Yeah.
Stephen, you want to talk to that?
Well, this is an awkward one because I have to say why it didn't stick. And first I have to say this is just my personal opinion, and it's not the opinion or anything from Telefonica. It's a big company with lots of it. So I think it's complicated, and it's a lot of points that I've heard again and again from different people, and all these things come together. It's this idea of what they're actually selling to people, that it's connectivity, that it's not more than that. It's a problem of implementing fiber to the building and all the infrastructures with a relatively limited margin, and how they react to that. And obviously, there's two ways you can do that. You can try and streamline and simplify your service so that you can get the most out of that margin and limit your costs and limit your efforts. Or you can try and go for value-added services, which they haven't done yet. And I can't guess why they haven't. So I won't. But for some reason, they haven't connected that. They have to realize there's value there that they can then increase their ARPU, and they don't have to approach it simply on an approach of cost cutting.
Right.
Us poor little techies down at the bottom are trying to shout up and wake them up that we need to look at some of these sort of things, if not just for the financial sides, because eventually our customers are going to say, from Vodafone, from Deutsche Telekom, we get these wonderful, cool stuff. I don't care, you're 5 years cheaper. I want the cool stuff.
Right. Although some people do, I imagine, care if it's 5 years cheaper, right? Like
they're not normally the best customers.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Craig, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, putting on an old hat when I headed up marketing for an ISP, one of the greatest things that we could build was platforms that marketing could lose quickly as well as win big, because no marketing wants to build a platform that takes a year to build, 6 months to then wait for a firmware to implement it and then find that it's unsuccessful. So losing quickly to marketing and people who are launching services is nearly as important as winning big. Failing fast.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it was not one of the stats that I picked that I can show on these slides, but we did have a question, and I'll actually raise this question, although you guys have kind of talked about it. There was a question about what the biggest hurdles were, right, for implementing value-added services, and or also transitioning to USB. That was a separate question, but the top one for the value-added services one was either low customer demand or internal buy-in, right?
Yeah.
It was like getting the salespeople bandwidth, I think, was one of the other ones, right? So can you guys talk to that experience a little bit of when the process started, and sort of like what it took to convince people to get there, or why why not?
Greg started already with it. I think if we have a diverse CPE portfolio, we need to wait 6-8 months for a firmware upgrade. We need to wait 2 years for an IT integration. It is obviously a hurdle. Yeah. So I think in that sense, yes, I think this diversity, non-standardized, multi-vendor, multi-market setup we had was a biggest hurdle. The move to platform helped us a lot there. We still have other problems. I like the slide yesterday with the CFO being the elephant in the room. So even if we have a customer demand, which might be different than Jason's results, we need to have a business case at the end. And not all of the services can lead to an upsell or an increased in subscription cost. Some services are maybe too basic, or they are seen as a commodity already that our competition is doing. So this combination of rollout time, IT and tariff integration, and a valuable business case, I think, has been the main challenges we found.
Reminds me very much to our situation. Yes.
Same.
Same.
You concur.
Same, but not equal, but it's very similar.
Okay, it's going to be kind of difficult for me to repeat myself.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll go at it from a slightly different angle.
Yeah.
So going on with this quick fail. So what I'm trying to do from the technical side is trying to make sure we have something available we can go through with the smallest hurdles possible when somebody wakes up and decides they're interested.
Right.
So, for example, talking with Eric to find that we have ATMs already in our portfolio that could form part of a POC or a small service. Working with Motive, our vendor on the ASIS side, that we have capabilities there that we could go with that. So when they say, we're thinking of doing this sort of service, we can say, oh yes, we can do that. And we implement USP with this. We have this on our customers already, and quickly move to some sort of trial, and then get some momentum in and not wait, do nothing, and try and go for a cold start.
Right. Is there any buy-in from like internally? Like, let's say you're developing these things that in the future could be customer facing and could be a value-added service, but in the meantime, they make support's life better, right?
That's actually, it's a different problem caused by the structures within the organization. So when you have such a large company, how you have to communicate between the different groups, doing the different functions, while at the same time the company's actively reorganizing and mixing them. I mean, I'm actually now in business. I don't know why. I'm the only guy who has a platform in quite a large business group.
Yeah.
There was an idea to have a digital services environment group. I think that overburdened the senior management, and they restructured it into another directorate to ease the management workflow, and are now in a rather strange place. But luckily, our culture is that we know who does what and why we're doing it, and we don't really care what the managers are doing.
Right. Great. Any questions from the audience before I keep going and stuff like that? Yeah. What are you shaking your head for? Speak up. This is a good segue to this one, which was, how do you expect the role of CP to evolve in an application platform? And huge, keep in mind, this was a select all. It was not a select one, as far as I remember, right? Even though it does conveniently add it to 100%, but huge chunk saying that AI and compute at the edge was their biggest use case, and then hosting application services directly on the CPE. And then a sizable chunk did say we only want it for dedicated network connectivity only. So it's pretty interesting. I want to talk a little bit about, I don't want to call it AI, but the improvement of metrics and the ways that those things can be done and how it has been helping things. And again, even internally, even if it's not about a value-added services, but just making things, more efficient, cost savings, And then do you guys see that as something that is, could be added to the CPE? Is it going to be part of the process?
Yeah. Yes, I would like to give you a nice example. We are implementing together with ABM, which is the interference detection for PLC, power line connections. So Deutsche Telekom pretty much has a DSL network, and yes, we have these interferences with higher frequency spectrum notches where you together, if you have a PLC line active, this will somehow destroy your DSL sync. And this is pretty hard to find out, because it's only happening when the customer really uses that PLC connection. For example, is watching TV over that line. So it's a failure which is there, and then it's away. And so what we make use of is that the Fritzbox is monitoring the DSL spectrum all the time, 24 hours. And we can't do this. We can't do this for our lines in our network. So we can see, we have the same data in the network, but we can't monitor them all for that information. But the CPE does it anyway, and applies some algorithms to find out whether there are interferences, and filters out that information and gives it to us via USB or as a data model. And I think this is a good example for a use case where you use edge computing on the CPE. Similar to what Gunther said before, you need smart data. You don't need all the dump data from all the sites, or you need to put in monitoring resources in your backends. You can also make use of the CPE to improve the network.
I would agree, obviously. I think that operational or COPS use cases play a big role. I think the challenge with AI is obviously it's a hype these days. Even if computing resources have improved a lot on the CPE platforms. It's still not plenty of that available. So when we run our RDK stack, we put some services on, we run a USP container on it. It's not like there's tons of resources left. So when we looked at that, I think whatever we do, it needs to have an added value to do it locally. If there is no absolute added value to do it locally, doesn't make sense. We can do it in the backend somewhere. So I think the example you made, Volker, yes, if there's a chance to aggregate or be more precise or faster, then we have a marketing department. They think about fancy use cases. So there might be things, I think Apple is doing that already, where you progress face detection locally. Yeah. So you can at least use a privacy benefit to a customer to say these images are not leaving your household territory and they can do things locally. But I think ultimately it must have a value add to do it on the device.
Great.
To some subscribers, a significant percentage, AI is actually a dirty word
Yeah.
and intrusive. And we're talking about the Google Hub earlier.
You know, there are other words that you could use, like machine learning,
Yeah.
pattern recognition, or anomaly detection.
And one of the greatest strengths that most service providers have is a very good brand and a secure brand. And so being seen as the secure provider, knowing that I'm not using your data above what I'm allowed to because I'm regulated, is a great sales point. And having that therefore sitting on the
In
CPE,
contrast to the people who do use that.
yes,
Right. Yeah.
and holding it on the CPE, which is this trusted device, is a good positioning statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. As we're kind of struggling getting started with the value-added service, you can imagine that AI is kind of in the queue with that as well. I think where we'll probably come to that first is in improving the operation of the normal things we're having together with our vendor motive.
Yeah.
So behind the scenes that customers don't see it and just improving the quality that way.
Right. But do you foresee the need to have some of that compute being done on the CPE?
I don't have enough details yet
Yeah.
to comment on that. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. Well, no, because I mean, I want to bring up a super other good point about this, right? Where the people who said dedicated network connectivity only is not a small number. Like it's the minority of this big picture, but it's not a small number. And so we have to be conscious of, part of the reason that I wanted to have Craig on here is I always want to make sure that we're not just drinking our own Kool-Aid, right? And so, what do we say? What do we say to the people to the probably a very, very, very big chunk of tier 2s and tier 3s that right now their immediate problem is getting better at that and making sure they're competing on that. Like they haven't got to the point where they can't even think about the rest yet. It's like, what do we say to them? What can we do better to convey the value of the stuff that we're building? That sort of thing.
I mean, you can earn money, you can create value. so it's not to do a beneficial thing. Also, it's for your own good sake to improve it and be careful if you just say, okay, I don't want to invest into development, into innovations, into value in new services, then you might lose customers. At least you need to offer customer some monitoring, some service assurance thing, even for just connectivity. So it's not a social thing. I think all value-added services Deutsche Telekom introduces are all for good reasons to earn money or to keep the customer within the network.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks, if I may, Craig. So Stephen mentioned already, I think if we would not do it, we would compete only by price. And obviously we have companies in the field that compete very aggressively only via price and sometimes even do not offer basic support. So I think support should be a starting point, as you said, Volker, to improve that. But I think it's also getting people attracted to your ecosystem. So when you are buying an AVM box, you're not just buying the router, you get the extenders. If you're elderly, you get a Fritz phone. I also have one at home, sorry. Yeah, so you are locked into this ecosystem. And I think if we do it right, we have value for us, value for the customer, but also we get the customer more sticky with us. Yeah, we have television, we have broadband, we have security services, God knows what. And I think that would be the ultimate aim at the end.
It doesn't matter what size service provider you are, churn is number one, keeping churn down. Old adage, it costs you 3 times more to find a new customer than keep the one you've already got. The great thing about tier 2s and tier 3s historically is they could move faster than the largest operators to offer new services, purely by a size mechanism. If they're not taking up things like USP, like containerization, like putting intelligence on the device, that's not going to be true moving forward because it's the tier 1s that are investing in those platforms, and the tier 2s and tier 3s have to do the same.
Stephen, any thoughts on that before a question? You know,
I think the drivers are all the same. So the stories they say I'm getting from the marketing people, their high level aims are the same. You just have to give them some time, and maybe from my side a bit of a reminder. There are some things out there that fit in with their goals, and they need to include. And maybe just one also little thing, which specifically for Telefonica Germany. I'm sorry, I'm too far away. There is a problem that they are mobile focused, and that from their side, the broadband forum, they're mobile focused, and the broadband side is sometimes forgotten.
If I can pick that up, Stephen, I think that's a funny topic we saw. So we did in Vodafone, I think we have 20 years of value added services in the mobile network. So when I started, we did things like a Vodafone Live portal. There was a fancy connectivity standard called WAP. So you had almost an internet on your device. And we continued from there. So it was an interesting journey. The only thing that helped us, and maybe it would help you as well there, is we try to copy paste the ways of working. So in the mobile space, we have product teams. We try to do an agile development approach. We get a commercial owner next to it. We try to move the same into the fixed world. Was a bit complicated. And ultimately, we also try to get our CPE engineering people, for instance, together in this product team, which were completely separated before. So I think it's funny you said that we have the same. We tried to change it 2-3 years ago to copy paste the mobile experience into broadband. Yeah.
Mike, why don't you go ahead?
So I had a quick question. I think, Volker, you kind of touched upon this. So I spent 20 years with a small tier 1 provider in North America. And it really surprised me after 20 years that we were still waiting for our customers to call us up and tell us our network was broken. So first off, my ignorance into the European segment, and this kind of question is directed back at the operators up on the stage. When you look at value-added services, for example, like I want to do a quality of service application to make your network experience better, and the response comes back as you're saying our network isn't good enough, right? We are producing the best network out there, and you want to collect money from the subscriber to make the network experience better. It's almost a contradiction in what an operator has been driving it with this connectivity piece. So we have this opportunity now to provide a value-added service to maybe address the customer experience. Wouldn't you think that would be the #1 driver from a value-added service? Because if the customer experience is good, your network grows. When the customer experience goes the other direction, we know what happens, right? So again, when I look at my question is, what do you believe the #1 value-added services that you would like to promote is, and what is it trying to address? And is it consistent with what I was seeing in the US?
So if I
And I think, Volker, you started to touch upon that. But
so from my view, I mean, obviously our network is super, as newspapers are saying, at least in Germany. But when we picked it up, I think we try to look at it from 2 ways. One is the COP's point of view to say, let's not wait for the customer to call us that the network is broken, but be proactive. And not just in the network, but also in the home Wi-Fi, because both is a problem area. Then going a step further, but that's one of these complicated business case discussions, we now launched in Italy a service that would then provide you a backup connection via your smartphone. So even if worst thing happens and your broadband is breaking, we would detect it instantly. And if you're a conversion customer, at least we would try to find an alternative route to replace network connectivity again. So I cannot agree more to your point. It's just a question, do we take the basic approach or do we take the luxurious approach to even get an alternative in?
Thank you.
Yeah, this converged connectivity we have already in place, but I considered this as quite significant. So converged mobile fixed access, right, where you can have a mobile link added to your speed. This we call this bonding, or you can have it as a failover, so that you are you can have a better and reliable connectivity. Yes, I think the crucial question, what is the number one service for the customer, right? When I listened very carefully to these presentations today, and one thing what always came up was security, I think. So Vodafone did already a very good job for this, but it is something service providers are concerned. Like you, Greg, said, customers somehow trust the service providers. And maybe they also think that it's our job to protect them. And so the service providers concerned, us concerned, and the customer needs it. And so this might be the one of the number one value-added services.
Thank you. Steve, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. It reminded me of some things that I think are quite amusing. So I think first of all, the value-added service, it kind of it's something extra.
Beyond.
And normally, the guys hire from me, that means cash, hard cash. And I think most people say if they have broadband, they should have broadband and it should work. There's nothing value-added about it. And the reason why I thought it's funny, because there's lots of discussions internally about network slicing and charging people for what MSN. They're not going to be very happy about being expected to pay for what they think they've got already. So I would say that's a basic. You have to have it. Otherwise, you're not selling a service. Never mind value added. It's fundamental. So you have to do that. You have to be particular. You have to make sure it doesn't go down. Okay, we don't have an automated way of having a backup via a mobile network. I just take my smartphone out and turn on the hotspot. It works just as well.
And to be clear, I know we talk a lot about QoS and QoE. That's not a value-added service. It's not a service. It's a service enabler.
Right. Well,
no.
But
If you're going to pay, if you're going to pay extra money for something, like I want a gaming package, or I want to prioritize my teleworking or whatever, QoE is part of that package.
Right. I guess the point I want to make, because we had made it in the past, is that there are two ways for a value-added service to manifest. One of them is explicit and one of them is implicit. So you're able to charge a higher price than your competitor because you deliver a better network. Then technically that is still a value-added service. The customer just doesn't know that. Right?
Most customers don't. I was at a Nokia presentation in Nashville a couple of weeks ago, and it was really fascinating that only 25 to 30% of homes are gaming homes, but everyone sells that as a package as this is the future. But what they then pointed out is those 25 to 30% of homes that are gamers are the biggest influencers to their neighborhoods and everyone else as well. So it's quite an interesting thing.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because they're the techie savvy people.
Right. It's you call up your neighbor's kid to fix your Wi-Fi, right? And he's like, you need This many antennas.
So just one follow-up question, because I think Arne kind of said it pretty distinctly. We want to get in front of the customer, not behind the customer. We don't want our customers calling us up. That said, wouldn't the ability to understand the quality of experience in the home probably be a primary driver for a value-added service?
I think it is a driver, but I'm between Greg and Jason. I think it's something that becomes more and more a commodity. So I think we have to play that game. We have to include services that help us to improve the experience and be proactive. The main question is, what can we do on top? So gaming modes, yes, obviously we discussed, and I think we got similar feedback that can help. But the question is then, is it a value-added service, or is it at the end a basic service that we have?
So my expectation would not be that this is something you can charge for. It's something that you deliver to show that you are the provider that, you know.
Maybe
the
we
premium
deliver it
product.
in a high tariff only, or we deliver it for a premium subscription or premium device. But I would agree, it's not something where you say, pay €1 more and your games are running faster.
Right.
It's,
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I would just quickly add to one point. I think actually I find there's quite a significant difference between implicit and explicit. And it's one of the banes of my life is that device configuration is an implicit service.
Right.
Yeah. So within my company, it isn't even recognized as a service. There's voice data in the service.
Well-
I know there's a device configuration service and it's critical, but it's invisible because it's not charged. And therefore you don't see, and therefore it's very subtly working in the background. So
Right.
we understand if we didn't do it, we'd have this competitive edge.
Well,
because-
and that's what's really, really crazy, because I think in Germany, there's still the law that says that, you know, consumers have to be able to install their own, they have to can buy their own CPE, and you right. In many, many countries, right? And
some people enjoy the pain.
that erases it, right? That completely erases the thing.
I was better said that there's a story from before I was doing auto configuration of a friend of my girlfriend's who got her new broadband and had to configure the voice service manually. It took her 2 weeks to get it working. She was very happy.
That happens to me, you know, as the guy who is the neighbor's kid. There's very often people will post on our local, you know, Portsmouth pages, you know, Facebook pages asking about broadband service, and then also asking about what router they should buy, because they're like, well, I don't want to, they're charging me $5 a month for this thing, and I want to get my thing. And I'm always like, no, don't do that.
So Arne and I were having a conversation out there, and I was thinking, oh, I should have recorded this, because it was very insightful about the comment that Robert made in the previous session about how do we reach out to you know, the Steams of the world and maybe other application providers and so forth. And Arne, you were suggesting there might be a role for the Broadband Forum as kind of a neutral spot for that. And maybe you can elaborate on what you're talking about there and then discuss amongst yourselves.
No, perfect. And so thank you. Obviously, I got a list of asks to the Broadband Forum that they need to help us more and improve our life. But I think that one I found interesting. We also looked at end-to-end speed test, obviously. And I think the caveat of the AVM presentation was, it's perfect if you do it on one device. It's costly if you do it on 10 million devices. And we need to get server infrastructure, we need to get other things in place. So each operator obviously has discussions, partnerships, agreements with certain big players to improve experience. But I think Broadband Forum could be like a neutral, consolidated ask. And maybe Steam is a good idea, maybe Meta is another good idea, but to lobby this, to say, look, it doesn't just, okay, it costs you $1 million to provide these servers to do speed test, but you can guarantee that your service is running best. Or we could even go a step further. We talked about smart TVs yesterday, and include that even in the setup of a device, because the customer at the end, if we are lucky, he does the speed test on his browser, on his phone, he would not run it on a smart TV. Yeah. So if we get some lobbyism, I think, on that and push that idea further, we can reach more use cases, more devices, and save cost, I think, at the end.
It sounds to me like you just applied as a vice chair for, you know, the market.
That's elected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
And don't forget that there's a lot of countries that it's a wholesale model. So be able to do that speed test, both for the wholesale provider and the retail provider, is really important. And a number of the wholesale providers within the BBF have started that work.
In addition, what I just heard, Erik van the AVM, in this case, speaking for myself. I was a few weeks ago, we had some discussion about the fiber optics providers in the Netherlands. And if you look to what we have in the Netherlands, we're over the split is around more than 40% is at fiber. We have almost 40% is on DOCSIS, the Vodafone Ziggo network. And the legacy in this case is DSL. So what happened in the Netherlands is as well that because everyone is delivering a fiber, most cases on XGS-PON, okay, how can we avoid churn from one, let's in this case, fiber to the home provider to the other, because we're all delivering the same XGS-PON solution. And I'm really curious about your vision about this, but there popped up three elements, and I heard some of them. First of all was, I think they said they mind Wi-Fi management or the Wi-Fi control, but I think I heard they mind end-to-end control. So that is the whole line. But they popped up Wi-Fi. That's one where they said this. We should do this as a provider. The second one was security. In this case, cybersecurity to do protection. Let's say on the devices within a home network. How to control a ROC device like a camera and so on. So this was the second option. The third one was also, and that's a little bit, yeah, how do you say it nice? Confuses me because I learned in the first days that is also touched by the broadband forum was to get under control the IoT, because the IoT world at this moment is a very split world. Everyone does something on their own protocols and all stuffs. So, and I was, from my point of view, a little bit surprised that it came from the providers, because they always said, please go to Media Markt, leave me alone. And now, yeah, this is what happened. And now I want to take control. Is this reflects more or less also your vision, or you have another opinion on that?
Yes, all of them.
Yes, and I really want to emphasize the third point, the IoT thing. I think also for your work and Broadband Forum, the working text 500, anything about meta integration.
517 for those of you who look it up later.
517 working. It's quite promising. And look, so what we are doing now in the home network, everybody agrees that this is so important, right? And IoT is so the smart home. I would better to tell it smart home. The smart home support from the service provider would be the next evolution step for us, right? So to continue the success story. And I'm so happy that the Broadband Forum then offers via USB and the data model the access to that and to the Meta. It's all about the Meta controller and the data, so that we can at the end do very similar things for the customers in the smart home area, seeing the topology. So the customers will have this very same issues, placing a camera in the garden where they don't have any reliable connectivity. So we can see this then. We can see the RSSI value or so. And then we can say, okay, you need a repeater or something like this. I think this is also a huge opportunity, and I just wanted to jump on that one, because the first two we already discussed pretty much, but the smart home thing is with the Broadband Forum standardization, with the USB, with the data model, that's a perfect match.
So again, being quite slow with the value-added services, then this isn't something I think I can say from what's actually happening, but I can give you my personal viewpoint on this. So it's quite clear from what various people have said that the home environment is rapidly out of control, and that needs to be controlled. And the way I look at things, this means we have to apply some structure and some consistent ways of dealing with it. This means standardization. This means standardization for a body that's shown it can deliver high quality solutions that work and have been widely adopted. And I think that means the Broadband Forum.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. The what was it? I was talking to Josh, I forget his last name, Sullivan, from the NTCA in the United States. And they help out a lot of rural broadband providers who are often very small. And interestingly enough, the ones who are there want to position themselves as the kid's neighbor next door, right? So they are seen as the technology experts, right, in their area, and they can help them do those things like deploy a smart home, monitor smart home, make sure everything's working fine. And so they've been encouraged to position themselves at that because, you know, quite literally it's their neighbors, you know.
I think if I can add here, I'm with Stephen and the challenges that you face, because in smart home, we tried it a couple of times in the past with different approaches, some more, some less successful. I think the critical part is, where do we invest that it's worth for us? So obviously we could do many things. Yeah, we have Meta chipsets on our devices. We could do fancy things now, in the new ones at least. But are we the best ones, or is not Apple, Amazon, Google, these folks already taken a big space? So I think it's really to find the niche, and maybe it's not the largest niche, where as an operator, we can add value next to this over-the-top players.
I mean, there's a reason why Amazon and Google have been making some very big acquisitions, especially in the security area. When you look at the report, 2 years ago, by far the majority, when we asked the question, how are you looking at the security smart home? The vast majority were, they're not touching it, or they're going to resell somebody else's product. This year, there's a shift, not dynamic, massive shift, but they want to offer managed home. And that is a shift because the word is managed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's actually a good way to do it, I guess. All right. Tim. Right. Yeah. No. What's your thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what Handy was saying, right? It's like, so what Matter's doing is trying to harmonize all the different technologies, right? So you have the one box in the net, or in your home, that connects everything. What we're doing is, what we're putting into Tier 181 is the ability to harmonize your Zigbee device with your Matter device, and Matter provides a way to do that. But what they don't provide a way to do is talk to the cloud and to talk to your not talk to your Google. and I think that's where we're going to come in and provide that access. And now everything opens up, right?
Right. And because right now they are specifically not wanting to standardize that, because they all want everybody to have their own ecosystem, right? Yeah.
And just to add one more thing, don't forget the power sustainability, you know, especially here in Europe, power consumption, things like that, the ability to maintain power off, power down, standby, whatever, is going to be important. And who's best positioned to do that?
If you allow me, is also popping up as something where we're working on is this whole small grid discussions. So that there is, from the external running on a controller, that an external controller run by a power company is able to switch on to switch off a device within your home. From my point of view, this is even a next step within the whole industry, and therefore, from my point of view, USP has the right tools to do this.
Yeah,
Can I-
let me just expand on that. So, yeah, and there had been some approaches in the past, like many years ago, where they basically used like mobile SIMs and stuff like that, but they figured out that that's not really sustainable. So they're actually doing it over broadband. So it's very important that
Many of them are also becoming broadband providers in some areas.
I think picking up this comment, I think on smart grid, what we brainstormed last year basically with Volker was, so at home I have one of these cheap plastic boxes with a Raspberry Pi that some smart grid company is using to control my electricity. The plastic box could be gone if we do containerization and standard integration right. Why not just run that on the router? It's not AI and it doesn't consume much resources. So we could just save 30 euros shipment and electricity, but that would require some further investment in standardizing containers and creating a kind of community that it doesn't work just with one operator, but it works with multiple devices and on the AVM router and on the Deutsche Telekom router and so on. So I think that was an interesting extension of this topic.
I've got an easy solution. You just buy Eon.
Yeah, very cheap.
How much does it cost?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thought on that. What we keep saying the word smart home, but we haven't really talked about.
Talk closer.
We haven't really talked about what a smart home is, right? It's not just a collection of devices, it's harmonizing the devices, right? And that's another thing that we're working on to put into TR 181. So you can now harmonize devices. You know, you walk in the room, the lights turn on, right? That's a smart home. That's a smart home doing things. And if you give, you know, your customers the ability to do things like that, now that's now it's a service.
Uh-oh, Lincoln's coming.
Yeah, you started to hit on it. I would postulate or put to the group that like smart home has nothing to do with the devices, the number of devices you have in the home. When you say smart home, it means that the home is doing things or adjusting itself to suit your needs. And that means you have some way of carrying out automations, integrations, sensing, and applying that to it. And now, as soon as you do that, and I've said this many times over, you are going to face a very challenging SLA. Because for more than 100 years now, the SLA on a light switch has been you flip the switch and the lights are on. There is no round trip to the internet. There is no round trip to a cloud server. You flip the switch, right? And so like, I'm a huge believer that like in order to meet those customer expectations in that SLA, you cannot do this without having a smart device in the home that is handling those automations and those integrations.
Right. And so the next point I was going to say, and maybe this last question or second to last question was the definition of smart home also means the network itself, right? So all of those things that are coordinating each other, right? That includes adjustments to the way the network is working in possibly real time to make sure that all those services are working. I guess that's not a question, but I don't know if there's anybody that wants to expand upon that. I didn't think so. No.
Yes, I like the competition with this switch in the wall. And it's real time. It's really real time and no latency. So that's a level of which is going to be challenging, right? Yeah. But it's a great comparison, right?
That's why we run it in our CP and not in the cloud.
Yeah.
But we've
The only reason.
We've also done a really good job as an industry to change our definition from being an internet provider to being a broadband provider. And pretty much Joe average consumer now just sees us as a Wi-Fi provider. And the smart home is an extension of that. If we solve the Wi-Fi, you know, who says, oh God, I must have a BNG problem because my internet's slow. It's not even my internet, it's Wi-Fi's playing up, Mum. Wi-Fi's playing up, Dad.
Right. All right. Last of my questions, unless everybody else has some. We came up with a couple things that we as standards and open source organizations which is a nice segue into after lunch. We will have a panel with the collection of all of the open source experts from Purple, RDK, OpenWRT, and the people who are integrating those things together. That will be the roundtable right after lunch, so don't miss that. And Arne has already expressed some of these things to us, but what more can we do? What do you guys need?
So I don't want to read out everything from the list, but no, I think one topic we looked, and there were some references to TM Forum earlier as well. So it's great that we have this cross-standard group initiatives like with Meta now. Do more of that, yeah? So sometimes we have a challenge when we look in the product and services environment, not the network, but product and services. We need to talk to IT systems. We have tons of TM Forum APIs in Vodafone, and sometimes it's quite difficult because the data model in USP is completely different than whatever we throw in there, and we need to translate it and we need to catch up. So I think do more of that. It's a great help. Yeah.
Yes, I would also support this. Would be great if you could harmonize there the network integration in the northbound side of the in the telcos. Yeah, that would be very beneficial. But I also have to express somehow my gratitude for the work you are doing. Just as we build on now a USB platform in Deutsche Telekom, we just I'm always so excited and happy to see when I can add functionality which is already there. So then this is so brilliant. Like we did now with the real-time feature. We will do probably with the speed test. I don't know, or we with the further data, the access data. So I'm in the position of harvesting some of your work you are doing. And first of all, I would like to thank you for that also.
The great thing is it's our work. It's not you and us. We're all here and it's down to you guys that are building these standards. It's our work. So thank you too.
Yeah.
We're just the whiteboard.
Yeah.
And then Stephen, I'll have you wrap up again. Go ahead.
Just a short extension to the discussion before. I'm also working as a developer at ABM. Is it? Okay. Now it's better. I'm also working as developer at ABM. And I just want to add something to the smart home discussion. So we really early adopted the IoT device data model of all smart home devices. And it's also possible today to connect any device from Zigbee, from IKEA, or Sonoff China stuff, or also our DEC devices, of course, these are better. But you can connect multiple vendors together and already access these devices over USB. It's right now in the firmware. So you don't need even these Meta controller stuff inside. We also developed a Meta client, so we can expose the smart home of the CPE to Meta if the user wants this. But a lot of users don't want Google and Apple.
Right.
Just to his point, I mean, we had this discussion this week in our regular meetings, and no, it's just bringing back to his point. We're like, well, what do we do with this IoT data model? We had put it in USP, but there was a reason. Is because when we built USP, we built that with that in mind.
Right.
Before Matter, before everything else, we were already.
It was one of the use cases. Yeah.
We were already thinking of these concepts.
And if I can even close the circle a little bit more, it's like, as Craig just said, everyone in this room can be part of the conversation. So it's not just that you have to consume this stuff. So it's very nice that, if you like what we are doing, and of course, you're always talking to me and saying, oh, it would be nice if we could have this and that. So trying to accommodate your needs, but you're a member and you can just be part of the conversation, be the first to reap the benefits.
All right. Stephen, last word.
Okay. I think maybe the area you can improve isn't where you're looking now at the moment. So obviously on the technical and standardization side, everything's going great. there are always going to be more things to look at and things to add to the list. That's part of the process. I think the way where things could be better is in terms of communication. I think you could have a big improvement in your impact if, well, at least if you my marketing department and they know these things exist, and I'm sure there are lots of other people around, and that will help. So bringing more people to the process, and the more people you get, the more ideas, the more you produce, and it multiplies.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
And there's your second vice chair.
Huh? Oh, great. No pressure. Yeah. Okay.
That's marketing vice chair.
Yeah. I think I have to reevaluate my plan about the councils and the vice chairs and all that stuff because of marketing chair of the Broadband Forum as a whole, and those happen to be the very same things that I'm thinking about it all the time. So, point well taken, and we will hopefully, as long as I'm not the only one doing it all, have a lot more of that in the immediate future. Maybe even at Broadband Forum meetings.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions before we wrap up and go eat? I think lunch is technically at 1, right?
Technically.
Because I purposefully work buffers into this so that. All right. Thank you, everyone, very much. It was a really, really great conversation, and I will see you all right after lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you.